Hey everyone, welcome to the latest installment of The Way It Is, and I am always your host, Luca Andolfato with Remax Service First Realty. And I am very thankful to have with us Kerry Ramsay. And Kerry is a champion of women entrepreneurs. She is the project manager for the We Can project, led by Queen's University, and the founder of Power Her platform, a story coaching business for women. Her popular Power Your Platform podcast, wow, that's a lot of alliteration going on, has been ranked at number 8 for all marketing podcasts in Canada. Over the past 2 years, Kerry has worked with more than 1,000 women speakers, leaders, and entrepreneurs across the Kingston and Quinte regions to help them launch and grow their businesses. She is passionate about leveling the playing field and helping women from underrepresented groups to step into leadership positions within their business community. Kerry's experience as a leader, speaker, and professional communicator have led her to develop strong relationships with her clients and to build a thriving community of women entrepreneurs who are making a real impact. Thank you for being here, Kerry, and welcome.
Thanks so much for the invitation, Luca.
Yeah, and that's a great preamble. And last week, because we had reached out earlier in anticipation of International Women's Day, and then the stars just didn't align, and we had certainly a wonderful guest last week, Lisa Henderson. I'm not sure if you've heard of her or not.
Yes, Lisa Henderson is one of our weekend clients.
Well, see, there you go. I knew there had to be we were coming full circle then. So we just put the cart before the horse, so to speak, then, I guess. But
she's a great example for sure for our community.
She really is. And it was a great interview. So let's start with the basics. How long has We Can been in existence, I guess?
So the We Can project, by the way, it stands for Women Entrepreneurs Can, and it's actually a 3-year project. It kicked off officially, I would say, in the fall of 2019, and it's funded by FedDev Ontario through the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy Ecosystem Fund. And we're actually one of about 50 or so projects across Canada. And the purpose really of the project is to equip, empower, and engage women entrepreneurs, and ultimately to double the number of women-owned businesses in Canada by 2025. So yeah, we've been around since the fall of 2019. Officially, this project wraps up in March 2023. However, the federal budget has indicated there should be some new funding for women entrepreneurship strategy programs such as ours. So that's what we're hoping for, that certainly we will not go anywhere, but continue to serve women across the Kingston region.
Right. So given what you just said, what was there before? Obviously, maybe than just the void that existed. Let it fill us in, I guess. What was happening before for women entrepreneurs?
Well, in our experience, there certainly was a huge gap. And we know that because of the response we've received since offering now more than 20 programs through the We Can project for particularly underrepresented groups of women entrepreneurs in this region. And so obviously there have been some great, established organizations such as Kingston Economic Development Corporation and, St. Lawrence College and many of our partners. In fact, we work with 8 wonderful partners, but on their own, sometimes, you get siloed in what you're doing. And so the We Can project really has brought together a number of partners across the Kingston region. And now we have a very focused intent and interest in leveraging the power of these women entrepreneurs, many of whom are solopreneurs, not all, but many, and really bringing them together and to form a community so that they can find each other, find collaborators, and of course, grow and scale their businesses.
I got a 2-pronged question here, I guess. So is there a limit to the number of women that can enter the program, A, and then B, what's the growth that you've seen from start in 2019 to today, I guess, in terms of number of women that are enrolled in the program, I guess, or taking advantage of it?
Sure. So the We Can project itself oversees about 20 different programs, or at least those 20 programs have been in action at some point during this 3-year project so far. So again, for instance, Kingston Economic Development Corporation delivers 4 of our programs. We also have an Indigenous women entrepreneurship program called Quebiz, which is run by Aguajo Equal Source, again, one of our Indigenous partners in this case. So each of the programs as they roll out, and the intake happens at different times, so it's not all simultaneous. However, for instance, in most of the cohorts, there's 10 to 12 women. So right now we have applications open as of the date that we are, doing this interview. We have applications open for the rural mentorship program, and so I think there's up to about 15 or 16 folks that can enter that program. So most of the programs are cohort based. And we have found that between 10 and 15 tends to be the sweet spot. However, we also offer almost weekly virtual workshops at this point and networking events. And of course, those are fairly limitless in terms of how many women entrepreneurs we're able to accommodate in those virtual settings. So I would say it's more the cohort-based programs that have a limit to them, but in many cases, those cohorts run more than once a year. In fact, I think the rural mentorship, which I mentioned a moment ago, runs 3 or 4 times. So in that program alone, we're able to accommodate about 50 women a year. So yeah, that's been the process all along. And in terms of your other question, in terms of the growth, I mean, I would say we started with absolutely no clients in the fall of 2019. Now we're serving more than 1,000 women entrepreneurs, or have up to this point. And many of those, have gone on to just support each other and to thrive and grow in the Kingston ecosystem, which is really satisfying to see.
Absolutely, for sure. And you speak to this sort of mentorship sort of program or part of the program. Where are these mentors coming from? Where are you finding them? And are they solely women, or is the mentorship coming from both, I guess, genders, or where are you seeing that from?
Yeah, it's a great question. We largely are relying on other women entrepreneurs in the greater Kingston region who have stepped in. Many of them are certified coaches, for instance. We ran the Fusion coaching program for for women entrepreneurs who would self-identify as being from racialized communities, for instance. And so the coaches that we hired for that program in particular were themselves women from racialized communities. And in this case, from the greater Kingston and Quinte region. So where possible, we're employing local women entrepreneurs to help and support other women entrepreneurs. And so we understand as well that representation matters. So we have been really paying attention to that, whether that's our Indigenous programming, our rural programming, women in leadership, whatever that program may be. We have got such a wealth of talent and skill in this region. There really has never been a shortage of mentors to fill those spots.
Well, that's great to hear, and I'm glad that that's the case for sure. I guess, from an age perspective, where are you seeing that sort of the needle of age for these women? And are they coming out of university or collegiate programs, or are they already established in a workforce position and wanting to branch out? Give us a sense of who these women are and their backgrounds, I guess. So
sure. In terms of age, it really is diverse. We have programs for women under 40, for instance. So I would say the Hive program and the Connect program, which are both run through the Dun&Dash-Pandy Queen's Innovation Center, which you might be familiar with, DDQIC. Those would be a little bit more focused on early stage businesses, even, people who just have a hint of an idea. Most of those folks are women under 40 in those programs. But having said that, it runs the gamut. And in fact, we have found that there really is a demand for women, I would say, who are reaching retirement age. And it's really interesting because, of course, then they decide, okay, empty nest. I want to actually leave this corporate job or government job, and I want to, maybe start a consulting business or a coaching business. And so it's really looking at that second act or that next chapter. So we don't have a specific program for women over 50, but in this case, they're able to enter our leadership programs or, any one of the other number of programs. They're not really limited by age. But, just to your point, they really are across the spectrum in terms of age and experience. And just to that point as well, we have some women who are in their 50s, but starting their first business, right? So they're also an early stage business. And it's really remarkable how everyone just learns from everyone else.
So am I understanding it correctly that someone comes to you with an idea or a thought for a business, and then that's fostered and encouraged. They just don't
Yeah.
show up and say, "What do I do?" or "Can I start a business?" type of thing.
Right. Well, we do have, usually you have to at least have an interest in entrepreneurship, even if that's the baseline. And so the first step in the process is that we have an application form, which is on our website, and people apply to it. And then there is an automatic survey that is also sent out, which is a self-identification survey. Because remember, of course, we are mandated to serve underrepresented groups of women across specifically the greater Kingston region. So, they apply and we ask questions. For instance, are you in the idea stage, the early stage, the growth stage? It gives us an idea of where they're at. And then, of course, we ask them to self-identify so that we know which of the programs would be, a good fit for them. And let's say that someone applies with an idea, but they don't fit one of those underrepresented groups mandated by the federal government. They can still attend any of our weekly or monthly networking or workshop events. Those are virtual. Those are open to all women entrepreneurs.
Okay. So yourself, what's your background? Were you an entrepreneur when you got involved with this project, or what's your background and your, I guess, attraction or draw into the Weekend project then?
Sure. So my background is actually communications and journalism, and I have been a serial entrepreneur all my life. So I refer to myself as a storyteller. And that, of course, is, I think, an important component of the Weekend project, because we're constantly telling the stories of the women who are a part of our program. It's the storytelling feature that allows us to attract more women when they find out, oh my goodness, my neighbor or this friend or someone else, in my community is doing this. I think I can do that too. So, so there's that storytelling communications background of mine that has certainly helped with this position. But then also, I have owned bricks and mortar business. I own a business right now, an online business. And I've been a serial entrepreneur all my life. I was a professor for 15 years, which, as you might know, usually you work during the school year, but you have your summers off. So during those summers was really the time when I grew and developed businesses, and then eventually learned to love this aspect, which is also supporting other women entrepreneurs in, their goals and dreams to start a venture.
Well, it's I've been self-employed my entire life, and I'm always curious because that entrepreneurial spirit, it's either in you or it's not. I find, and I dare say it's got to be the same for what you've experienced, correct? Or
Yes, it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. And one of the things that I should point out is that the Weekend Project began before the pandemic did. So, we had, all sorts of plans, which really have gone ahead. All of the programs have run. We've just done it in a virtual sense, of course, along with everyone else. But I really think that this project was perfectly timed for the city because the support we've been able to offer to women during COVID, honestly, we've had clients tell us they don't know if they'd be in business still. Just even with that mental pressure, what it's like as an entrepreneur to be on your own, sometimes having meetings with yourself, wondering, like, I wish I had a sounding board. I wish someone could collaborate with me on this. And so that's exactly what the Weekend community is intended to do, is to bring people together because we're stronger together, whether that's, from a mental health point of view or simply from a tactical, implementation point of view.
right. And so let's talk a bit about the funding and where the monies go. I mean, apart from obviously the infrastructure and bureaucracy that is the Weekend project, because every program like that needs that part of it. But what funding is available to these entrepreneurs, I guess, then in terms of thresholds or monetary thresholds, and for what, and all that what does that look like, I guess?
Right. So the Weekend Project is a $3.2 million project. And in fact, we received additional funding during COVID of $250,000. And the money is earmarked to deliver programs and services. So we do not directly give money out to women entrepreneurs. It's simply a part of the project parameters. However, having said that, we have hired hundreds at this point of women entrepreneurs to deliver workshops and programs. And so all of that type of money has, stayed right here in the Kingston community. And of course, working with our partners, to develop the programs that we're delivering has also allowed, those funds to stay right here in the Kingston region, and, slightly beyond, depending on slight geographic boundaries. But that has, I think, been, really, really encouraging to see, those funds stay and allow, those existing businesses to flourish who really are there to support entrepreneurs. And I should say, just on a note, that even though we don't provide funding directly to women entrepreneurs, we have a weekly newsletter that goes out. We call it the Weekly News Digest. And in that, I curate every week funding opportunities specifically for women and or for entrepreneurs in the Ontario region, the Canadian region. There have been many wonderful programs that have certainly occurred as a result of COVID, but we've also seen the Black Entrepreneurship Fund. We've seen many additional funds for Indigenous entrepreneurs. So that weekly newsletter is sort of a curated collection of funding opportunities in addition to, the other news about news and events. So we have absolutely hundreds of people on that list that every week I'm sending out those funding opportunities. And it is so exciting to see our local clients getting funds that, they never even thought that they should go for, but we just, give them that little encouragement. And here they are, $5,000 to a small business, that's a lot of money. And so that's encouraging to see. And we're grateful to all of our partners who have, allowed us to communicate those types of funding opportunities.
Yeah, no, and that was where I was going to go next, and I'm so glad you elaborated on that, because that's, that is one of the biggest, I guess, not so much a hurdle, but a struggle, where you're so busy, caught up in the day-to-day of running your business and what do you need today and in the next week and everything that and let's face it, trying to navigate the myriad of these, like you said, of what the opportunities or the funding, and debunking them and trying to figure out, where to go and what site and applicate. Yeah, so that's a fabulous. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't do it. That's for sure.
Well, and I should mention on that note as well, there's a lot of, for instance, grants, that certainly entrepreneurs are always excited to go for, but a lot of our community has never applied for a grant before. So another thing that we do, for instance, last week we offered a grant writing workshop. It actually was the second one we've offered since COVID began. And we've offered actually a number of workshops around this idea of funding. What are sources of funding you could apply for? How do you apply for them? Outside of the perhaps typical bank loan model, right? Which, sometimes, it's getting better, but it has had its barriers in the past, particularly for brand new business owners. And so it's really been a matter of highlighting and spotlighting the opportunities. This Thursday is another example. We have a Kickstarter case study where we have a locally owned business by 4 different women entrepreneurs have come together. They did a Kickstarter campaign and got that off and running. So we're going to have a case study on that to teach others how they can also get funds from Kickstarter. Again, an alternate form of funding.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. If going to just to speak on the underrepresented communities or demographic and the Indigenous. Where was it? Where is it now? Give us some insight into that, if you would, please.
So just to clarify which groups we do offer services to, I can explain that. And so underrepresented groups for us, according to the federal government's mandate, include women in technology, Indigenous women entrepreneurs, rural women entrepreneurs, women with a disability, women under 40, females from the LGBTQ2S community, women from racialized communities. And I think that's it. There's 8 of them all together. Rural women. I don't think I mentioned that one before. And so those are, the groups that we're working with largely. And so almost all of our programs have been 100% full. To give you an idea, Luca, the aim of the project, or if you will, the goal of the project over 3 years was to serve 250 women. We're not even through, year 2.5 here, and we've served over 1,000. So when we talk about the demand and the interest, it has been far, far greater than our expectations. And so, in every single one of those categories. So we're just so encouraged by that. And, again, long after the Weekend Project is gone, we want to see women thriving and coming together as communities, not necessarily simply as Indigenous women entrepreneurs or, other groups, but really this intersectional gathering and growing community of powerful, brilliant women who really are able to impact the Kingston ecosystem in a meaningful way.
Yeah, well, and you know what? That's great to hear that, though, because obviously, like you said, there's a need, there's a demand, and obviously that means that projects like We Can hopefully will continue to be funded and going forward. I'm curious, and certainly not expecting you to have the statistic at your fingertips if one even exists or if you've even tried to analyze it, but from these different categories of groups that you have coming, how many of them came from entrepreneurial backgrounds in terms of the family ran a business or the mother or father ran a business or someone in the family ran a business? Are you seeing any of that continuity or that entrepreneurial sort of gene passed down, if you will? So.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a majority in either camp. I mean, I hear often that women have created their own business not out of actually necessarily an entrepreneurial spirit, but because they had to. In some cases, they were left as the sole breadwinner of the family. They weren't prepared for it. In some cases, especially, I would say newcomers to Canada, or, in certain situations, they weren't planning on becoming business owners, but here they are. And so for whatever reason, the family circumstances pushed them into this actually, real opportunity, which they wouldn't have imagined beforehand. So there is definitely, I think that's a large group of women that I talk to. They're like, I never planned to be a business owner, but here I am. And by the way, I'm loving it. But, certainly there are a lot that also, I would say, are second or third generation entrepreneurs. I wouldn't say that group is as large, though, as the women. And again, particularly because of COVID, who perhaps lost their jobs, right? Decided they just wanted to stay home. They were not interested in going back into, this regular, the job they had before. And so they said, no, this is the time I'm going to strike out on my own. So the number of new businesses we've seen created during COVID is, far greater than we had expected. But again, we're hoping that they'll stay the course for the long time, and that will really help to transform the business landscape.
Yeah, for sure. And so, given what you just described, of course, there's no college of entrepreneurs or anything like that teaches you business, and those that come into it, as you say, out of need or necessity. What part of that program, or I guess you must have programs or opportunities for them to sort of get educated in terms of, because let's face it, when you're a business owner, you're chief cook and bottle washer, or right at the same time. So, and not everyone has accounting background, not everyone has tax background, not everyone has had a commercial tenancies background. So are there services like that, or is that part of the mentorship part of it, or how does that get sort of filtered down into the community?
Yeah, I think that the mindset of a lot of women coming in is that they need to do it all. And so part of the training is for us to say, actually, there's three major components, as you just identified, if you're a business. There's the product or service, there's the financial part, and then there's the marketing and promotion. And sort of it's like three legs of a stool. If one of them is wobbly, you're in trouble. And guess what? You might have a great product or service and be the visionary for that, but you might not have the financial background. So let's talk about outsourcing. Let's talk about support. Let's talk about growing and scaling your team if you're looking to have a business for the long term. Otherwise, it's burnout. Otherwise, it's discouragement and frustration. So I think even the chance to have those types of conversations at our monthly, what we call a virtual cafe, it really does, write a permission slip for, people who didn't really need a permission slip, but really to say, hey, we see you. By the way, you don't have to do it all. And so that, I think, in itself is a huge learning curve. And so then it's like, oh, now that I don't have to do it all, what are my options? And so it's sort of guiding from, really ground zero through to all the different stages. And of course, some people do come to us at a growth stage. And so their challenges are different. And we do have accelerator programs for them. But again, if we're talking about the early stage entrepreneurs, mindset and just really getting the lay of the land, understanding what resources are at their fingertips, even right here in the Kingston region, I think is really enlightening for a lot of them.
Yeah, well, and that's great to hear. Actually, that's wonderful. Everybody needs that safety net, that's for sure, and that's refreshing to hear that. So, I guess. I won't take up a lot more of your time, but where obviously you want this to extend. Do you see yourself continuing in the role that you are in? Should obviously the funding continue, and is this something you want to do long term and continue to be in this role then?
Yeah, I've worked with women entrepreneurs now for almost 20 years in various ways and in different types of roles. So this is my passion, is supporting women entrepreneurs. So, we're certainly waiting to see what the next chapter will be for the We Can project. But no matter what, the stage has been set for, I think, really incredible growth and success among women entrepreneurs in this, what might possibly be the final third year of the We Can project. We're getting women ready for, if that were to happen, okay, great. So how will things continue? Make sure the network is strong, make sure that you have collaboration opportunities. So, no, you don't want anyone to rely on a program. You don't want anyone to rely on a project for their success. So it's really empowering them to say, you have the tools, you have the skill set, you have the mindset. Now go out and educate other women about that. And let's just let this be a ripple effect, no matter what happens with the government funding, right? Our success is not reliant on that. And we can't build it into that. Has it been an incredible resource? Yes, absolutely. And we have, just hundreds and hundreds of testimonials to that effect. But I wouldn't want someone to be reliant on us. It's not an indicator of their future success. So no matter what, I'll be involved though, supporting women entrepreneurs.
Well, and thank you for saying that. And that's great. And sadly, and not embarrassingly, my podcast certainly hasn't ranked number 8 anywhere, I don't think. But for those listeners that won't catch this or anything else, how does one just randomly find out about you, the We Can project? Where? Because we'll post some links on my site and everything else. So, but maybe you could tell us how people come to find you then.
Sure. So I think the easiest thing for the We Can project, because the We Can website is very long, so I won't say that out loud. But the easiest way is really to go to Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We are at We Can Queens U, and so you can follow us there. And particularly if you're following on Instagram, there's a drop-down menu with our application and a link to many of our programs. So if you go nowhere else, I would suggest We Can Queens U to learn more. And certainly anyone who has a question about the We Can project can also reach out to me through any of those social media tools and just start the conversation and see if they're a good fit, or, hey, maybe they know someone who's a good fit. That's how we've grown the program over time. And I believe we'll continue to.
Well, and that's fantastic. And thank you so much, Kerry, for your time and enlightening us. Obviously, the community is much better served for the work that you do and the work of the program. And it's been, you know what? It's been, it's funny. When I started the podcast, it was when the pandemic started. So every topic was pandemic centric and everything. And now actually the last few have even kind of forgotten about the pandemic, which is kind of, refreshing in and of itself. So it's great to end on a high note like this with a great good news story like this coming out of the pandemic. Let's hope, right? As the restrictions are lifted. So I wish you all the best. I wish you well. And I wish We Can and yourself much success, continued success going forward. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. You take care.